And I remember watching my mother bake a pie, and she could just make a pie crust without even thinking about it. And she used Crisco in her pie crust. And when I was first learning, I even sometimes used lard, which makes the best pie crust in the whole world. Lard pie crusts are great, but they're really not very healthy for you. It's almost like smoking cigarettes. I think it's that. So I'm going to show you how I make a pie crust. And there's so many different recipes for making pie crust. Some people put vinegar in them, some people don't. My mother, it was basically shortening, flour, some water, and some salt, and that was about it. Now, the pie crust I'm going to make today has a little vanilla in it, and it has an egg in it, and it even has some sugar in it. But you don't have to put the sugar in, the vanilla. You don't have to put the egg in. But this is a recipe that I got one time when I was going to the Central Market Cooking School. We were making a lemon curd and raspberry tart. And this is the pie crust that they taught us how to make. And it was so good. Now, the only difference is in the recipe, it also had lemon zest in it. I don't think that would do so well with pecan pie. So I left that out. And you could use the same recipe without the sugar if you didn't want sugar in it. But I'm going to show you how to do that. And part of the thing with the pie crust, and we just got this out of the refrigerator, I actually cut my butter up, little things like this, and I put it in the freezer.
Yep.
And some.
Will you give the amounts?
Sure. Yeah, in fact, I could even, if I could get in the church office, I could make copies. But I'll tell you, for the butter, it is 7 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And I use unsalted because we're going to put salt in.
Right.
So that's why I don't use salted butter. But the nice thing about, the thing that I like about this is the pie crust takes 7 tablespoons. The pie filling takes 1. So there's your 1 stick of butter. It just so happens to work out on this, and I'll give you the recipe for it. But 7 of these, and I chop them in little cubes like this, and I put it. I need to wash my hands again. And I put it in the freezer and get just go. But I learned from doing these 4. Don't take it right from the freezer because those are little rocks. So I take them out a little bit before, 15 minutes before, so to let them begin to melt a little bit. And then I start with, and so I'll just do it. I start with 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And
Gary, can I ask a question? Your measuring cup may be 10 years old. Where'd you get that to lid on?
oh no, I just got it yesterday.
Oh, really?
I was in Walmart, and when I'm in Walmart, I always go up and down that aisle because
Me
they
too.
have things that are cheap and that I might want. And so I found this with the little lid on. I thought that's perfect for
I love it.
so. And what it has so you can even pour it out if you want, or strain.
The
And-
Corel website also has other options. The
What?
Corel website will have
Corel.
different sizes.
And because I was reading so many
That's
things,
fine, but they-
I wrote FL on it so I would know this was flour. Because flour and sugar can look a lot alike when you can't see anything. So the first thing, yes.
Why do you freeze the butter?
to make it
Because to make it cold, the colder your butter, the flakier your crust is going to be, because it creates pockets in the dough that when they're heated up, it makes your crust flaky. So that's why you want to cold. And also in a few minutes, I'm gonna put water in here, and you want ice cold water. In fact, a lot of times I will put some ice cubes in the water to get as cold as I can get it. So with pie crust, cold, everything cold. Well, I mean, you don't have to do these things cold, but cold enough, and then and it just makes a flakier pie crust. So I'm gonna put the flour in here.
Do you want me to go get water?
Would you? Thanks to Sarah. You know, that's another story. I am happy for Linda and the life she has now, but boy, do I ever miss her. Because cooking with her burger was so much fun. This is not mine. It's not.
The cord's in the way.
Oh, the cord.
There, yeah.
That was it.
There you go.
Okay, so that's the first thing I do, and then next we're gonna put the butter in. And so I just dump it in.
Whose mixer's that, y'all?
It's the church.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I was gonna bring mine, but I saw they had one.
And it's heavy duty.
And I will say this, I'm gonna be a little meow. When I took the plastic of it, it was not clean. Not even a little bit clean.
Where was it?
In the kitchen, and on the counter in the kitchen.
Yeah, I bet.
She doesn't need.
Yeah.
It probably hasn't been
They probably
cleaned
don't
in
use it,
years.
it was kind of nasty.
In the kitchen.
But we cleaned it.
They cleaned it about 2 years ago.
Now, some of you have
I
the
don't know
kind
how
of
much.
lean back. This is the kind I have too, the heavy duty one. I don't think it really matters.
These
It
cabinets
doesn't
out
matter.
here need to be
So
cleaned.
now, the first thing
I've
I'm
never
gonna
seen
do
one like
with the,
that.
you want to
Oh, it's pretty
get the
much like
flour
mine.
and the butter
Very
mixed
old,
together, and
except it
says
doesn't
in
lift up.
size, whatever. But this takes a while, and while you're doing this, you don't have to worry about it building gluten, because gluten's not gonna start happening until you start adding liquid things to it. So I'm gonna, and you see how hard it is, it's making that sound. And so I'm gonna let this go for a few minutes. Here's the sugar. The sugar is 1.5 tablespoons. And the salt is hardly worth the effort. It's 1/4 teaspoon.
Or use salt and butter.
Now, it says in a separate bowl, in this recipe, it says in a separate bowl to mix the egg yolk, the vanilla, and the water below.
Right. That would be me.
That's not necessary. So I'm gonna put a little bit of the vanilla in. I'm gonna put the egg in.
I just learned about vanilla powder.
You know what I
Yeah, I ordered it.
And it won't matter. This was supposed to be just an egg yolk, not an egg yolk and the white. But I'm stuck with it now. Wait, I haven't made it.
Yeah, I'll put it. Egg yolk.
Yeah, and here, take this. Will you separate it out?
That's the way I do it.
I can strain it with my fingers, but I don't want to. Yeah, I could. I brought an extra egg on purpose. Just a yolk, 1 egg yolk. Well, that's the thing. You start with a tablespoon, and then you add another tablespoon, and when your crust comes together,
You stop.
then you'll know. This out of the way. Oh, I have to tell you something funny. Here this says dusting flour. Now, Brad can cook, but when I said I have a little container that I put in my dusting flour, he says, "Where do you buy dusting flour?" It's really hard to find. I've never seen that. Okay, so we're going to add this egg yolk. Mix a little bit. Now, here
Pie
is,
crust after you put it in the pan.
you start putting
No.
water in.
When you're
Stir the
rolling it out.
tablespoon and let it mix it. We'll need some more. And you know when it starts to come together. Not quite. I wish I had a clear bowl so you could see, but I don't. A little more. You know, it's funny. Sometimes it takes more than other times, and I've never figured out. One more.
But it's ice cold water, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see when I take it out of here.
But you shouldn't write it down because it depends, I think, on humidity.
Now,
Humidity.
yeah. Now, the one thing I want to tell you now, when you're making pie crust, you have to not roll it around a lot.
Yeah.
You need to touch it as little. I mean, don't knead it like you're making bread.
So don't do it when you're angry.
So don't do it when you're angry.
Don't work out your frustrations.
And so here's my little dusty flour.
Gary, where do you get?
A dusting flour.
You get it out of your all-purpose flour bin.
I love it.
You know when we see Brad next, we're gonna have to say something.
I do find it might be processed now. My mother did. Yeah. She would use.
You'll notice I'm not
Crisco.
kneading it, I'm just pushing it together.
This is what you in trouble. I feel sorry for the
Yeah.
That's good. Then you just make it into a disc with some
I've never used
cling
it.
wrap. And this needs to go in the refrigerator for at least an hour. Because of this week doing all these, I've some left them in overnight. It's fine. Then, just call me chewing a child. I did this one last night. And so, what I often do then is take it out before I'm going to roll it out, maybe 15 minutes. Otherwise, it can be so hard that you can't really. So I'm gonna,
Can you freeze those and then?
you
bring them
can,
out?
you absolutely can freeze it. So now what I'm going to do, and now I'm going to talk to you for just a couple seconds about rolling pins. This is a French rolling pin, and it's my favorite to use because it's just so easy to go around corners and all that, and I love it. This one is also a great one. This is good if you're making like sugar cookies because they all need to be the same thickness, and so these little things screw off, and they have these little discs, and they tell you the size on it. This is 3/8, etc., etc. And so if you use this, you're going to have the same thickness. When you use these others, you don't know. So I sometimes use this to, especially if I'm making cookies that I want to be uniform, this would be a great one. And of course, I told somebody, this is dear to my heart because this is my mother's rolling pin. And I said, my next birthday, I will be 70. And I don't ever remember my mother not using this. So this is an old rolling pin. I would love to know the story of where this is, but I don't know the story. I never asked. You can see this end, at one point it was green, and it apparently caught fire on her gas stove and something. And so I still sometimes use it. And it's just very dear to me, of course it would be. So what I'm going to do is, now I happen to have this particular,
It has the rings.
that has the
different
rings
sizes.
around it so you can see the size. I usually don't use that, but I didn't want to just put paper or put flour right on the table. So what you want to do is begin and go all the way over to the ends and go off it. And what I wish you could see, I wish we had a camera,
Yeah.
because you can see there are big chunks of butter that you can see, and that's what you're looking for, because it's going to make it flaky, flaky, flaky. So I do it once about that way, and then I turn it. And one of the reasons I keep turning it is because I don't want it to stick to the board.
Oh, I'm gonna go get the other one and show them, like walk up and show them.
Oh, okay. And you want to keep moving it around this way so that you can keep it in a round. Now, one of the reasons you want to roll off the side of it, if you don't, your edges are going to not get as thin as the middle. So that to stay uniform.
Chucky.
Thank you, family.
You're welcome. Put the phone in the back.
Now that, and you can do this, and yeah, it looks pretty close. So what I'm going to do is drape it over this.
And you don't spray it or anything?
I don't.
Oh,
And so you try to get it centered in there. I maybe could have rolled it out a little more, but you can kind of play with it and move it around a little bit. And then what I want to start doing is forming it. And so I take my finger and just push it down all the way around so it gets really down in there. Because if you don't, you don't have enough room for all your delicious. And then I just do it this way.
It's 9-inch the very dish.
This, I think, is a 9, I think. Now, this is what my mother used to do. I don't do this. I'm going to start to show you what she did, but I don't. She would do this.
yeah.
I'm scared to death I'm going to. Well, I'm getting there.
Your mother be
This
proud.
is just a little pastry knife
How would you do it if you didn't have to?
with a kitchen knife,
Oh.
just with a table knife. Or you can actually do it with scissors, kitchen scissors.
Yeah.
You can go around. All right, now, it depends. I like to, if I have enough dough, is to fold it under. Just a little strip, fold it under if there is enough, because that helps you sort of get a lip that's going up.
It looks pretty.
Yeah, so that it looks pretty. You can also take a fork and go all the way around it. If you don't want to do this, there are lots of different ways. Now I'm just noting, as I'm going around there, this side is a little thicker than this side, so I really was talking and not paying close enough attention. It got a little thicker over there. I don't think that will end it, but, all right, now this is what I do to flute it. I take my middle finger, because it just, usually this finger has a bigger fingernail on it. If you got fingernails, this will be more difficult, but then I just push it in all the way around like that. So you have So that's the pie crust. Now what I'm going to do, whenever I'm doing a pie crust that has a lot of liquid in it, I like to put it on this tray to shove it in the oven, because there have been many times I've been going like this to the oven. And so this helps with some stability. So I'm gonna put it in there. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is put the pecans. Now this recipe says a cup of pecans. And I say, is this a pecan pie or not? So this is a lot more than a cup of pecans. And so I take just one of these, it's a cup size, and round it over. Because we don't call this a custard pie, we call it a pecan pie. So,
We're in Texas.
and then, you know, you want to kind of even them out a little bit, get them up in there. Because I think every bite should have a pecan. Now, I've tried doing the things with the pecan halves. They can only do that in professional bakeries, I think. Because they never line up right.
Oh,
So I just do it this way.
I did it one time, but then I had a goopy pie, so it didn't matter.
Oh, okay. Now I want to talk to you about pie shields. When you bake a pie for 30 minutes, you don't need a pie shield. 45 minutes, you don't need a pie shield. But if you're going to bake it an hour or longer, this crust is going to turn to charcoal if you don't. Now, there are a couple kinds. There's the silicone one that you can just wrap around here and to cover it up. One of those down there I used it on, and it did all right. But I've been using this kind forever and ever, and I love them because, like for example, this pie was in the oven for well over an hour, and look at that. That's not burned at all. It's the pie shield that does it. So I go ahead, and I was telling somebody else, as many pecan pies I've made, I've always done it this way, made this, poured it in, and then right before sticking it in the oven, try to get these all lined up on it. And the other day I thought, why not put them on first? And it works so much better because your pie crust, you don't have all that goopy in there that's getting all over everything. So I just cover them up.
And you like the metal ones the best?
I do. I don't know what. I have one somewhere at home that I couldn't find that is a solid ring of
Right.
metal. That might do the same. But this, the reason I like this is you can mold it to fit exactly the way it is. And I kind of push it down on them to really cover up that dough so that it won't get so dark.
Where do you get it?
Online, I
Oh, they're
think. Just
everywhere.
if you put in pie
They're at
shields,
Walmart.
they're at Walmart, okay. But,
You just have to know what you're looking at.
pardon me?
I've seen them, I just didn't know what they used.
But I never put mine on forward there.
See, I never have either.
I always do it, no, I do it halfway through the baking, and it's
Oh.
hot, and it's pain.
Yeah.
Well, it is, and that's why, like for example, look, that's beautiful. I mean, even if I do say it to myself. I mean, I don't mean to be like that, but I mean, this
You
was
left it
in,
on the entire hour 10, and then took them off at the end.
well,
I mean, if they-
I pull it out of the oven and let it sit there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I start pulling it off to let it kind
Oh,
of
that's
settle
pretty
down.
bad. I
And
burned
so
myself in it.
this is brand new for me. This week I did this, and I'll probably always do it that way from now on. So now we're going to move down here to making the filling. Where's my piece of paper? Where'd that go? Oh, here it is.
But
So
that's
this-
the same recipe from your book.
This is not.
Okay.
Because in the book, it just says a 9-inch pie sheet.
Oh, okay.
This came from the Central Market Cookies.
Okay, the pastry.
Now this is from this book. And by the way, I have under here, I prepared this and then I didn't make copies of it. But this is absolutely all of what I'm doing today, all in one sheet. And if we can get in the church office, I'd be glad to make us some copies of it.
We can also take a picture of it. No. Email it.
Yeah, you could do that.
Can't print
Okay,
them out.
so now we're going to start with the filling.
It'd be a PDF.
You could use this
Sean
for the
sent
filling,
something PDF and
but I've always used this for the filling, and I just like it better. So, Sarah, bless her heart, this is 4 eggs, whole eggs, that we broke and put in this. So it says beat the eggs. Now this is the tricky part, or it can be the tricky part. You really have to mix this a lot, because you really need all of this to come together. And you want the eggs to start getting a bit fluffy. So I'm gonna put this in.
That's all it's in here is egg?
4 eggs, 4 whole eggs. That's all that's in there right now.
Right now.
Right now.
But it doesn't look like egg to me.
Well, they sat here for a few minutes,
Yeah.
and so they got a little darker than they normally would. But it didn't hurt them. I mean, they're not bad. But I want to start seeing some foam. Because you know, that means there's some air getting in there, and that's what you want. to make this.
But you don't quite want like a soft peak or anything.
No. You don't want anything
That's not
like that.
fine.
But you want to see bubbles to make sure. You see, I've been mixing this quite a bit. Now, the next thing, once you feel like you've got that pretty well mixed, then you want to add 3/4 cup of sugar. So I'm going to slowly pour that in all at once. And then I want to mix it for a while because you want that sugar to start to dissolve. Because you're really wanting to make a nice thick custard. Then the next thing I do is pour in, this is salt.
Half a teaspoon.
Half a teaspoon of salt. Then here's my other tablespoon of butter that I've melted. And by the way, Rebecca, I noticed a minute ago when I said 7 tablespoons of butter. And I was watching a cooking show the other night, and somebody's going to make pie crust, and they said 7 tablespoons of butter.
Wow.
I'll be darned. Somebody must know what they're talking about. Because I could never. Now, by the way, when I was doing this at home the other day, I was trying to put this in, and it fell out of my hand, went on the floor, went on the counter, and I mean all day yesterday, the most pleasant smell in my kitchen.
Hey, Gary, we were looking up, she said that the Williamsburg cookbook is online and has that recipe.
Oh, that's great. Now, I'm on a really good, now here, this is when it really helps to have somebody else. Now, I'm gonna stop this for just a second. I learned a little trick from one of the things that she would often do with, you know how when you're measuring out mayonnaise or something else, and you dig it up. Well, this is the answer.
Yeah.
Spray this on there, get your mayonnaise, and the whole thing just plop. The same with honey. You know how honey will never come out. Spray this, put your honey in it, and I mean all of the honey pops out. Well,
Also,
now
your measuring cup's the same way.
the measuring cups, and that's what I planned to do with this, and I did it a couple of times at home when I was making this. This morning I forgot. So she's going to take a spatula and dig it out.
K-roll syrup.
K-roll syrup. So now the
Which will
K-roll
come
syrup
out.
is 1.5 cups of K-roll syrup. And so this is when it helps to have somebody else because you want to, now some of this while it's been sitting here, this wouldn't happen at home. It begins to solidify, things begin to solidify. Now, you won't be able to get it all out, it's okay. Now, what I want to do now is really mix a lot. Because that is just thick as it can be in there, and you want to get it all mixed in with the eggy mixture and everything else, so you really beat it quite a bit. Now the reason I'm using this particular Pampered Chef bowl is because of this lip, this spout. When I get ready to pour it in there, it makes it so much easier than if you just had it in a bowl. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, this makes so much. Makes me so happy. This makes so much that probably I'm going to take all of it because I put so many pecans in. So if you have a little left over, dip some dough in it. And
Re-roll the dough, make a little.
So Gary, do you actually time that or you just watch to the consistency?
I just watch it to get, so that I feel like everything is really mixed together. And let me come around. If you see this, you can see nothing separated. It's just really, it's really mixed together about that. Oh, it takes. See, it's all, that's why I like to do it so much. Everything, yeah, go ahead. But it's all mixed together, so there's no, it's not separated out.
You ever make them in the dark there?
No, I never have. Have any of you?
Yeah, some recipes call for it. I think my grandma used to use, well, it just makes it rich. My grandma used to
Makes it
use,
richer?
dark, hang on, Gary, do that to me. There we go. Yeah, grandma would use the dark table. Yeah.
Now, what is happening now is you will see the pecans have floated to the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carry this back there and put it in the oven, and then we're gonna come back out here, and those of you, I know some people can't eat nuts, that's okay, but anybody that want pecan pie, we've got it cut and we'll serve it up for you.
Do you leave it on the pan in the oven?
I do, it doesn't hurt it at all.
Here's my tip, push it to the back of the oven.
Yes.
It loses less heat back there. You always want to push everything you put in the oven to the very, very back.
Also cooks more evenly too.
It cooks more evenly, that's absolutely right.
Because it